one major problem we've noticed is the poor maintenance culture that is inherent in many of our operations. So, as a facility manager, what are the technologies that you think can help to improve the way we pay attention to maintenance of our built projects?
Okay, thank you very much. I think the reality is down on every one of us that we cannot continue to do things the way we're doing it before and expect to see different results. Gone are the days when there seemed to be abundance of financial resources all over the place, and you can buy. When it goes bad, you throw it away, you buy a new one. And that behavior, that culture, permeates the entire society, right from government on infrastructure down to individuals on their, private life level. But we are now in a situation where everything we buy, we must learn how to maintain it properly and extend the useful life and make it work as if it still remains as new as it was before. So that same situation extends to management of infrastructure and management of our real estate assets. We can only do that effectively if we truly have a clear understanding of what facility management is, and different definitions have been given to it. But where we are today, the definition is changing with the reality of the time. And we are seeing facility management beyond what people used to think it was, which is basically the maintenance and operation of your building services and assets. But we are seeing facility management beyond that as a connection between the people and the space where they live, work, shop, and play. And when you see that connection, the next thing that we see now is that the line between where people live, where they work, where they shop, where they play is becoming blurred. That differentiation is gradually diminishing. And we are seeing the totality of life as one. So we say it's about total living experience. So if we come with that understanding, it will be clear to us what we need to do to achieve that total living experience for people. So if somebody is living in an estate, we will see some people using their own unit within that estate as office. And when that happens, the digital connectivity of the world, defining the modern age, is saying that we must provide water, electricity. But beyond that is communication facilities. So you go to some hotels, you don't have access to data. Automatically, that reduces the value of that asset or the utility you enjoy when you're in that facility. So facility management is beginning to see things beyond the realm. And to achieve consistency in the value to deliver, you must have certain ingredients in place properly to deal with that problem. The first is effective structure, organization structure. You must have well-trained people to do the work. Then the processes that would deliver consistent high standard of service to people must be there. And lastly is the enabling technology, which is the question you have asked me now. To enable the technology to deliver those services, it transcends different aspects and it graduates. You can't start from the very, very bottom level of the break and fix, what most of us do. If it doesn't break, you don't need to fix it. And it is at that level we are talking of technology that supports corrective maintenance, where you are talking of good call center, where people can call and they are sure somebody will respond to them to fix the problem. And I think if you can do that as a basic minimum, you have done something reasonable. The next is the preventive maintenance technologies. These are systems, and that is where we begin to talk about CAFIM and CMMS. CAFIM is a computerized facilities management system, and we have quite a number of them. What the systems do is that it takes every asset, it looks at the requirement for maintaining them. What do you need to change after certain hours? Change the oil, replace this, fix that. As long as you do those things consistently, the frequency of breakdown will come to the barest minimum. But it still does not say it will not break down. The last part is where we begin to talk about predictive maintenance management system. And that's where artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the Internet of Things, all those ones come in. Because predictive maintenance rely on big data. That's when you can predict that if you have 400 bulbs in this room, I predict that after 1 month, 40 will be burnt. So you don't have to do too much of preventive, because preventive costs you money. Preventive is about change it when it is this time. But predictive goes beyond that, where it's predicting to the highest level of accuracy when the system is likely to fail. And then you apply technology to solve it. But all this within system of smart building, which we're also familiar with. Smart building, you go into the building, once it senses somebody comes in, the light goes on, the light goes off. That helps you to manage efficiency of energy to a large extent. So the technology space for facilities management has really, really advanced. And we must be clear in our mind how we want to tap into the benefit that that offers. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you very much. Please, can we give him a round of applause? That was quite an exhaustive explanation on ways in which we can begin to imbibe more maintenance abilities into our buildings. So I would like to ask Mr. Odunayo, the CEO of Alaro City. Now, being an estate development firm, research has over time shown that many of the constraints that is experienced in real estate development, such as shortage of skills, fluctuating cost of materials, and a lot of others. So now, global companies are beginning to adopt the ability to build homes in controlled environments. So we have people who are now into modular homes, factory-based construction. So if we now begin to look at, in the context of the Nigerian economic system, do you think that a modular construction process is an economically viable option for construction and real estate development?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me to speak today. And to your question directly, modular building systems and the impact on, I think, development generally in Nigeria. Now, just to explain what modular building systems are, these are almost like factory-developed housing systems. So essentially, in some instances, you can build a house in 29 days or 28 days. So modular building systems have several advantages. One is the speed of construction, obviously. You can develop very quickly. You can build and just replicate houses very, very quickly. And then another advantage is the quality control. So these are homes that are built under very well-controlled environments. So in terms of the walls are straight. In terms of the size of the windows, you can almost laser cut aspects of the building systems to ensure high quality of delivery. So in Nigeria, what are the problems plaguing developers? One of the problems plaguing developers is quality of construction. We have different people who struggle with construction. I'm told, and I know, that a lot of our artisans are imported from Togo, are imported from Ghana and other parts of West Africa, because we do not have a lot of the skills at that level. So modular systems could be a solution to the question of quality control. Because if a lot of the quality delivery is not in the hands of, in quote, poorly skilled people, and you are using technology to minimize the impact of human error or the impact of very poor delivery, that could be one thing that could help developers to a large extent. So we are beginning to see more and more developers adopting technology in this aspect, where the delivery is very deliberate and it is almost laser quality finish. So that's one area. Another area, somebody was talking to me this morning and he said, the problem in Nigeria sometimes is that you know when you start the construction, but you never know when you finish the construction. A lot of the times. And that is because there are many other factors that come in that could move your delivery time forward. Modular systems and other similar systems will minimize the time that it will take to deliver housing units or buildings generally, not just housing. So one area is the speed of construction, to the extent that modular systems assist you in being able to achieve that. The third aspect is in the cost of delivery. One big problem that developers have is in managing waste in construction. And that speaks to, for example, how people apply materials. For example, tiles. You have contractors or tilers that can waste a lot of tiles just because of the way the tiles are being applied. When you use technology, you minimize the aspect of waste. In fact, your QS can calculate the exact quantity of materials to be utilized, and to a very close estimate, that will be what you will use. And these are the areas of project management that plague most projects. It's in the issue of cost, it's in the issue of time, and the issue of quality delivery. So if we can apply technology in this way, I believe ultimately it will lead to improved returns to developers, and more developers definitely are looking at using technology to improve their final returns in development.
Thank you. Now, a side to it would be that when we do understand how this technology will help us, I'm still questioning it now. So, but then we begin to look at the ability to actually deploy this in the Nigerian economic system. Now, what I'm saying is this. For example, we've had companies like Aderele that are fully based modular construction firms. But looking at the state of Nigeria, now, do we have infrastructure in place to support such development? For example, we have a factory based in Ogun State, and then there's shortage of electricity supply. There's no way to move raw material to the factory because of a poor network of roads and a lot of other factors. So do you think that these are issues that can be overlooked for firms and companies to begin to adopt this process?
Thank you for that question. So the problem plaguing developers is multifaceted. I don't think modular systems on their own would be the panacea for all the problems plaguing the development industry. It's just one of the solutions in a series of solutions. So, and if you look at these systems, there are different ways in which they can be applied. Some modular systems can be applied in situ. So you do not need to manufacture the parts in a factory and transport them to where you are building. You can actually build those modular systems where you want them. So for example, you have panels that you can assemble, and then you can pour concrete, and then they set, and then you move on. So now, as a developer, our job is to find solutions, regardless of what the challenges are. A very serious problem is infrastructure challenge. I think, a lot of us in this room will attest to the fact that infrastructure is a big issue in terms of transportation, logistics, roads. So gradually, we'll solve the problem. Modular systems will solve the problem of the actual delivery of the buildings, but will not necessarily solve the problem related to infrastructure. I think infrastructure is a separate subject, and I know that there are other solutions that are being implemented to deal specifically with that. But just to answer your question directly, modular systems need to exist within the framework of the current challenges we have and solve the problem that they can solve while we solve the other problems separately.
Thank you. Please, can we give him a round of applause? So I would like to move on to Mrs. Edumoh now. Now, being a business development person and more into sales and marketing, I expect that, and I believe that you have an extensive interaction with home owners, real estate buyers, and a lot of all that. So what technologies or what ways are you using to ensure that you improve the quality of life of these people? So they've given you insights because of your interaction with them. They must have given you some insights on their needs, on how to make their life better. So what technology are you using to help integrate this into the real estate development process?
Okay. Thank you, Moses. Good afternoon, everybody. More and more as I interface with clients and the end users of our product, there's a constant need for comfortability. Whenever people buy homes, they want an integrated security system. They want to enjoy facilities, in the system that helps their kids. They want to have a good quality of life. They want to have proper maintenance of what they're buying into. And so more and more the expectations are changing, every day when it comes to the after service quality that homeowners, are looking to get. Currently, what we do in our business to enhance that, we take it past the delivery process. So previously, people wait for when the houses are already delivered to expect, this comfortability. What technology has done for us, in recent times is from the start of the production process, that's building the house itself, we introduce technologies that help customers to have a beautiful, after-service product. So from the quality of production, for instance, we are building houses now that parents can give off to their children's children. By that, what do I mean? The industry standard used to be about, you have a concrete grade of about 25%, and that gives you about 35 years. Now you have technologies like post-tensions that give you concrete grade 40. That means the houses can now stay as long as 100 years. 100, years, yes. We have houses and technology that is able to do that. We are partnering with better collaborators in terms of end delivery, like elevators that will give you 0.1 downtime. You also have general services around projects that give you a better play area for kids. You have better quality of facility management, like my colleague here mentioned. So more and more we are trying to create an experience that when the user leaves the hustle and bustle of for instance, Lagos is very busy. Lagos is crazy. You go out, you want to come back in and you want to feel a lot of comfort. So what we are doing is making sure that from the production phase of the houses to the delivery phase and then to the management, the end user feels very comfortable, and looks forward to, coming back into his or her own space.
Thank you for that response. So I would like to say that I'm actually leaving one of the best for the last. Mr. Ayo is actually a technology consultant. So the interaction with all of the firms that have been questioned would help with his answer. So one of the greatest barriers, especially in Nigeria, to the adoption of technology is the capital intensiveness of acquiring these tools. So for example, we have many technologies across different phases of the real estate development, but across these stages, firms that are interested in integrating technology or technologies into their processes find it difficult to comprehend how to relate that to the business value. So how they want to make business out of making that decision to make those procurements. So as a technology consultant, how are you helping your clients, who are the real estate development firms, to ensure that the technologies they acquire or they adopt get some business, some positive business impact on their businesses?
Thank you, Moses, for a very kind introduction. I'll try to live up to it. First of all, I must say that the idea behind the idea that technology is expensive and thus unaffordable to most people that use it is more a matter of perception than reality. I remember almost 30 years ago now when I first came into the technology world as a computer design support consultant. I used to hear questions like, hey, do you have any idea how many years or how many months I can pay a draftsman for to pay for just one computer? But then as people actually began to use these things, fast forward a few years later, a client of mine, an architect, was seated next to me whilst I was helping him produce some presentation drawings, as it were, for a project of his. And I didn't realize he was watching when I was placing the plants and how quickly I did it. And he goes, what? Sorry. I'll still be looking for my circle template. I'm sure many of you understand what that means. So in terms of raw productivity and what you can accomplish, that's really where the value lies. Now, the first thing is to understand which technologies are appropriate for what stage of the work. Many of you are moving from using CAD now to tools like Revit. Sometimes people are using in Revit a machine gun to try to kill a fly. There are tools that are designed for early stage concept development, some of which are completely free, that particularly developers can start to use in order to shape their developments more closely to the need of the end buyer. We have tools like Format, for example, that allow you to actually do a design on the actual site, which is drawn from Bing Maps, for example, and allow you to even extend the quality of your design to being able to examine things like life cycle energy usage of the design based on things as simple as not just a location, but the orientation of a building or the shape of the building. And then if you use that, you can actually, with that tool, get to the point of doing the kinds of renderings that you now use in your marketing long before you've laid down a single block. And then Mr. Ojo mentioned earlier the value of being able to so closely estimate the use of materials and the installation of those materials that you suffer very little loss, which is another big issue in your industry. Loss during installation, loss even in purchasing more than you need, and then some people helping you to reduce the quantity that you have to hold, that kind of thing. So you can minimize all of those things. And by the time you begin to layer on each other the value that you are getting from those different stages, up all the way into data that now flows from, not just from design into construction, but then going up into facility management. Now we have tools, for example, like BIM 360, which is a series of web-based tools on a platform that allow you to have much more efficient collaboration between all the disciplines in the design team. So when you look at tools like that, one of the questions that you want to ask yourself, what are we going to argue about at site meetings now? Because everything about the design is resolved on the system long before it gets built. I foresee a time not too far from now when even the design process will be linked to the financing process. And what I mean by this is that with software, that technology that exists today, you can actually have somebody come into your office and say, I'm a 3-5-person family, my children are this age, this is my income, and so on. And the software can compute how much house is affordable for them and also inform the design of the building and the location so that people then have a clear forward view of when the project will be delivered, for instance. So some of the other things that we've discussed around things like modular housing, around comforts of, appropriateness of the product for the need of the family, to maintenance, be it reactive, predictive, or on demand. preventive, on-demand, or reactive. All of those things can be enabled by technology, but not just by standalone silos of technology, but technology that is all connected with each other. One of the things that used to happen typically in design is that there's a lot of loss of information. So the architect does a design and gets to a certain point, and in the handoff to the next consultant, that consultant has to start again from an earlier stage. All that is cost, because that takes time to all resolve and so on. And then you have that happening not just in one path, but in several cycles where things are returned and then redesigned, and then it doesn't have the fit, or it doesn't fit the purpose, then it has to go back again. With these technologies, you avoid all of that. So that ab initio, even the cost of producing the design concept that you want to build is so much lower, and you save time, and that time itself has cost implications for you. And this is how technology delivers its ROI to you, by all of those other savings that you get along the path. So you know what they say, if you think education is expensive, why don't you try ignorance? That's really the argument for this. I could talk about this all day because it's what I do for a living, but I think I should stop now.
Yeah, I expected a lot of that. Please, a round of applause. So, would like to also receive some questions from the audience. Do we have anybody? Okay. Yes. So, can we take 3 questions? There's somebody right here in front.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Atubi Kingsley. I work for Rural Homes Limited. A lot has been said about technology in the real estate industry. I've attended sections like this, and where we get to call the stakeholders, different stakeholders in the real estate industry. You have the architects, you have the engineers, you have the QS and all that. Through the value chain of real estate, I don't think I've heard any emphasis being laid on the place of the project manager in real estate. And Mr. Ju just rightly stated that some of these wastages could be cut down by proper project management. And my question is, where is the role where is the place of the project manager in the value chain in real estate? Thank you.
So do you want to answer? You mentioned your name, so.
Thank you for that question. I think it's a very good question. I think in our respective roles, we should think like project managers. I think where the profession is going now is that everybody must have the training and the thinking of a project manager. So everybody must be thinking about the key drivers of delivering a successful project. You must think about the cost, you must think about the time, you must think about the quality of your own work, even in the field of IT, and in fact, almost every other discipline now, even HR. You have HR project managers, you have project managers in the construction industry, in the IT industry. So the way I see this is, we don't have to single out any particular discipline. We are all responsible in our individual disciplines to have that sense of ownership, exactly. Have that sense of ownership for delivering the right product for the right market, for the right clients at every point in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have, okay, he wants.
I just wanted to add something, that project delivery process is getting more streamlined with the advent of technology. And we're getting to the point where the efficiency of that process is being enabled by technology. From the time you start planning your next project, up to the time of people living there, operating and maintenance. So the cycle goes thus: planning stage, conceptualization, design, construction, installation, commissioning, handover, operation, and maintenance. That whole stretch, there's something we call BIM. I'm sure that's from that point when you start thinking of what you want to do, the location of it, the use is, am I doing residential? Am I building office? Am I building commercial retail? All this put together will determine the type of building you're going to have. It will determine the type of flooring. It will determine the kind of space partitioning. And the traffic you are expecting in that building will influence everything. Then it goes further to influence the kind of components and systems you are installing to withstand the use. And when that use changes in the future, the kind of changes that will be impacted will also be mapped. So you have your building information management that must be integrated as soon as your architect is conceiving the idea. And I know that most of the architects now we have, most of the design people are familiar with these tools. And you, as asset owners, as the landlords, as the developer, you must insist. If we build that in, the cycle of design to construction takes roughly maybe 2-3 years at most, depending on how big and how complex. The life cycle of a project, we're talking of like 50 years. So once the builder finishes, he hands over to people like us to look after that building over the entire life cycle of another 50, 60 years. That point, we need all this information because that's how I will know where a pipe runs through in the building. That's how I will know the type of, the specification of the cable that has been used. What is the lifespan? And if this is changing, power will be affected at this point. Look at our airport. The last time, some cables got burnt there. And the issue is that these are cables that were installed several years ago. They have their own lifespan. But because there was no centralized data management system that tracks the expected lifespan of those components, when one breaks down, it impacts the other, it impacts the other. And when one breaks down, if you don't have the information, you don't know what should fit that part. And if you buy a wrong spec, they won't communicate. And then you start having problems. And we are moving more towards very complex buildings these days. When you communicate and you relate with the right partners who understand how those things work, it's only when you will get the right value and you have minimum disruptions to your building and achieve maximum value at the lowest possible cost.
Thank you very much for that response. Can we have your question now?
Okay. My question is probably towards what's your perception of BIM readiness of real estate developers? In the introductions, I think it was Moses, he was introduced as a 5D BIM expert. That's something that some people know, some people don't. But however, what is your general idea of BIM readiness of real estate developers? I know you do a lot of interactions with architects and other professionals in the field, but as real estate developers generally, what do you think? Thank you.
Actually, interestingly enough, there's a scale that's evolved from what's been done in the UK particularly, because I think in 2018 it was mandated that all government projects be done to at least, it was 2016 or 2018? Yeah, at least to BIM 2.0 level. I worry that we're still well below that. What we are seeing is even outside of the real estate industry, we're just seeing the beginnings of moving above BIM 1.0 into 2.0, which is the ideal situation with BIM is that one, all designs should be based on an intelligent 3D model at the core of all the information. So all the information about the project, just as it will exist when it's built and operating, will be in that electronic model. Now, that electronic model may be one model or a federated system of models where you have an architecture model, structural, services model, and maybe other models, and then they should all be linked together and be mutually querying each other to ensure that there's consistency. For example, clash detection, making sure that you don't have any pipes that are running through beams or even horrors of all horrors, wires that are halfway through the space. We're just beginning to see the start of that, where people are migrating out of producing a model inside one practice to having a series of models that talk to each other. Then going forward, beyond just the production of the design models, even the process by which people interact with each other, also that is only just beginning to happen. I would say that mostly we are at the awareness stage and interest. We are not seeing full action yet. So, but then again, these things tend to change very rapidly. So if we have this session again next year, I'll probably be telling you a very different story. But we're still at the very early stages, which is a shame, because that means that there's a lot of value being left on the table in terms of savings that could be made, speed of delivery. I'm sure if Mr. Ojo will have his way, he'd like his projects to be done in like half the time. That's probably possible with some of the things that we could do, but we are not yet doing.
And then, just like he said, though we are not there, but at least achieving awareness across the industry, part of which panels like this are expected to project to the audience, is that everyone needs to, of course, buckle up and then do a lot of more learnings and self-development. So I guess the summary of all of this panel discussion would be that technology is evolving. Every practice that feels that, oh, okay, we still have a question? Yes. How many questions can we, just one last one. So who do we give? He has been raising his hand since the beginning.
Okay. Suleiman Ibrahim is my name, from Urban Shelter. I was very happy to see this topic of discussion, impact of technology as a game changing in the real estate development. Actually, in Urban Shelter, we've been interacting with a lot of providers of this new technology in real estate development. But mine is not a question, it's just a contribution to what the speakers have said. That it has a lot of advantages with all precisions and cost savings, looking at it from the angle of wastages and what have you. But three things that we found out that is very fundamental, and that is what is actually like slowing down the coming in of these new technologies into the real estate development in Nigeria. One, perception. Our perceptions towards this technology, people accepting it as a real home, being produced. Number two, this technology is forex-based. By the time you come, sit down, do all the computations, it has never been cheaper than our traditional method. So how do you move? Then number three, of course, it has advantages of producing these houses in less than no time. But how, again, do you buy these houses? We don't have effective mortgage systems to actually, for people to use for the investor to recover their investment in less than no time. So until we start looking at these issues, we continue to see slow pace in these technologies coming into our real estate development. Thank you.
Thank you for the opinion. Yes, while we understand that all of those constraints are there, we still believe that, especially as an organization which I represent, we still believe that a lot of efforts to improve the industry deals with individual decisions to actually begin to change your perception towards technology. So when we begin to aggregate the transformation of the perception of individual units in the industry, we will see that the industry begins to move, and then everybody begins to enjoy the value of actually implementing these tools. Thank you very much for the session, and we also like to appreciate all of the members of the panel. Please kindly give them a round of applause for honoring the invitation, and thank you to the organizers of the event. Just like Mr. Ayo said, if this session will be holding next year, we can promise you that a lot of effort would have been done, especially from organizations like Beam Africa, which I represent, to ensure that the industry moves, and then we also achieve the value of adopting technology. Yes.
Just to add something I want to add something to what you said. Thank you, sir. I think on the point of price, you're very correct. I think my colleagues here would help us probably next year to discuss how technology can move. Now, because I interface a lot with the end users, one of the biggest challenges is with the introduction of all of this technology, how does it help with price? We have a deficit, we have a housing deficit, and one of the things that chase buyers is the class of people that buy houses are still, that bridge has not been closed. And with the current upgrades in technology, the price has actually not gone lower, it has gone higher, and so people are asking, yes, we want technology, yes, we want to enjoy this, however, how can we bring in technology that would not hamper on the overall costing of, what we're buying, so that we can close the gap. So I hope that this will be addressed next year, just like you said. I have. Thank you. Yes.
I just want to say something that when it comes to technology adoption, what I've observed in some cases is that people go into it not based on strong business case and readiness. A lot of people get into it because somebody came to sell it to you, and you just want to buy something from the person. To implement technology, there's a lot of preparedness required. You must understand what you want to buy and how it fits with your own current situation and future projection, where you are going. But what you cannot do is to ignore the fact that technology is disrupting everywhere. And real estate industry is not an exception. So your starting point is to acknowledge that fact and make conscious effort to be prepared for the implementation of the right technology that suits your situation, and keep an eye on the direction that things are changing. Because most of us wait until the thing hits us. And when it hits you, you rush into it and you rush out. For me, that's what I think is usually responsible for failed systems. When you go into it without adequate preparation, adequate scoping, and without integrating with your own internal management system and development plan, then you buy wrong technology, you implement it wrongly, and it gets you into trouble. You pay more, and more catastrophe happens to you. So I would only suggest that, please, let's implement technology intentionally. We have to be very deliberate in our approach to implementing technology. We have to plan for it, we have to put resources behind it, and the leadership from the top must be there. If your employees know that you are interested in a particular technology, in moving the company in this direction, they will follow you. But where you don't show interest, where you are believing that somebody will teach you everything how to do without making some effort to even understand the basics, you get it wrong. So that's just the only advice I would like to leave people with today.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause as they go back to their seats.